Hi, my name is Jen Downing, and I go by the pronouns she and her. I am an intuitive visionary artist that specializes in something I call spirit sketches, which are intuitively drawn portraits. I'm also a certified process arts facilitator. Process art is what we will be doing today, and like the name implies, it's focused more on the process versus the end product. And it's a really great way to process emotions as well. So anything that feels heavy or would like to be released, it's a great way to explore those emotions and find personal symbology while drawing and seeing what comes through you in those moments of self-expression. So today we're going to be using process art to scan the body, the mind, and the spirit or soul. So today we will be needing 4 or more pieces of paper, something to journal in or write down thoughts and words, writing utensils so that you can jot things down in your journal or paper, and then some type of drawing utensil such as crayons, markers, or colored pencils. It doesn't have to be fancy. Anything that you have on hand works. If need be, you can just use pencil or ballpoint pen, but ideally you'll be using something with color. Now, if you would like to learn more about the work that I do and about myself, please visit the Light of Loving Kindness website at www.lightoflovingkindness.org. So let's begin.
Okay, so we're going to start off with intention. So creating art helps to connect to ourselves because it helps us to access something deep within us. It helps us to listen to our innermost desires and dreams. We tend to set intentions without really listening to ourselves. So we set intentions without actually going within and identifying what we genuinely need and desire. Instead, we typically set intentions that we think we should, like I should be more productive, or I should meditate more, or I should change my diet, exercise, etc., etc. We take something that is supposed to originate from our hearts, and typically we find it from outside of ourselves, whether that's society, or magazines, or parents, etc. So art can help us to dive deep and access our truest desires and yearnings. So I'm inviting you now to set an intention. Now, an intention are words, phrases, or images that inspire and soothe your mind and heart. So when you're choosing an intention, check in with yourself and ask if it expands within your heart. And when you say it out loud, do you find yourself smiling? Does it make you feel good? Because what you focus on grows. So I'm going to ask you to pause the video and choose an intention for today's activity or for the day itself, or even for your week, your month, your year, but setting an intention that you feel really aligns with what you would like to be focusing on and allowing to grow within your life. So feel free to pause here and journal or write down in the paper you have set aside for writing down things, what word or series of words that will align with the intention that you would like for yourself. And I'll give you the moment to do that. So the first drawing activity we're going to do is something I like to call degunking. It's essentially removing thoughts or feelings, clearing it out of you through drawing. So releasing it through drawing. You can imagine it as pulling it through from your head, down your arms, into the paper and releasing. So just take a moment to close your eyes and think about all of the things that the lovely self-critic likes to tell you throughout the day, whether it's worries or things you don't like about yourself or any type of fears or stress or frustrations that you're holding on you today. Just think about what those things are And then once you have kind of a clear picture of what those things are, which probably shouldn't take too long, I invite you to take your first piece of drawing paper and either write down what those things are or draw them, and think of it as like you're weeding it out. So again, there's no right or wrong way of doing this. This is me showing you what I'm doing, but however you choose to do this is absolutely perfect for you. So I allow myself to let go and release the stress or tension or fear onto the paper that I have been holding within my mind. So again, what I'm doing here as you're watching is very abstract, and this in and of itself can be some type of a release where you're allowing those thoughts and you're seeing them, or visualizing them rather, going from your mind, like I said, from your mind down your arm through your hand, and just releasing them. It's like you're weeding them out of your garden and you're just letting them go. Just like storm clouds in a sunny sky, you're just letting them pass through you, just getting that gunk out of you. And this is also a great warm-up exercise. I actually went to art school, and very different from process art, because art school is all about technique, but our figure drawing teacher would have us start the class by basically drawing lines on the paper in any way, shape, or form. It didn't matter, but it was a warm-up exercise to not get so caught up in our head, because oftentimes, even when you're trying to draw something that looks a certain way, such as in art school, you get caught up in your head very quickly, and you start to overthink things. And so she would have us just draw mindlessly, and it helped us loosen up. So think of this as a warm-up exercise, just like you warm up before doing any kind of physical activity to help your muscles become more pliable and ready to take on heavier lifting or cardio exercise, however you're exercising. This gives you not only a warm-up to just let yourself flow, but it helps with just releasing things that are not serving you, that you would prefer to let go of. So just give yourself the time and space to really release all of this. And again, you can write down words too. You can also write those in. So self-judgment is something that I struggle with, and I know many do. And worries about finances. So this is all, as you watch me, this is all just as an example, of course. I invite you to really focus on your process and what feels right to you as you're doing this. It's not about what am I doing and how can you copy what I'm doing. It's about what feels right with the materials that you have in your home and how you express yourself in the way that's going to be most beneficial for you. So just keep in mind that I'm using what you're seeing on the video as an example, but what I'm doing and what you're doing at home could differ quite a bit, and that's perfectly okay, and I welcome it actually. So again, I invite you to pause the video if need be, to give yourself the time and space to really breathe out as you draw all of those stress, tensions, and worries that you carry with you. And so that way that you really have the moment of introspection. So you're not necessarily listening to me talk, but you can pause the video and just let yourself really go deep and allow yourself to release everything that you've been holding lately. So I will give you a moment to pause, and then we'll begin on the next activity after that. For our next process arts activity, we're going to be focusing on the body. So what is body acceptance to you, and how does feeling completely safe within your physical body feel like? What types of colors come up in your mind when you think about body acceptance? We store a lot of emotions in our body, and it can cause a lot of tension in our muscles, in our neck. And so this exercise is meant to also release any pent up emotion that we store within our body and give us a more clear sense of self and allow us to express ourselves in a safe way when it comes to our body image and body acceptance. So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes for just a moment and just scan your body and notice if there's any tension anywhere in your body. And just know that these are all just sensations. And then as you feel any tension that may be anywhere within your body, it could even be in your eyes, it could be in your shoulders, anywhere you're feeling tension. And visualize a line from that tension, drawing up from that area, up to your chest, through your heart, through your arm, into your hand, where your drawing tool is, and allow it to just come out. And as you release this tension, think to yourself, what does body acceptance feel like to you? And just let the lines and the colors choose you. So however that feels, just go with it. We often are shown that our bodies are supposed to look a certain way, that they're supposed to be a certain shape, a certain size. And when we don't feel that we fit into that mold, we can judge ourselves very harshly, very critically. And also, outside of body image, we store heavy emotions within our body. And this is why getting a massage feels so good. Because oftentimes the tension that we are experiencing within the body is derived from stress of some kind. So taking the time to creatively express that tension into paper is a beautiful act of self-care and can really help release some of that stress that eventually ends up in our body. So again, I'll just remind everyone that this drawing that you're seeing me do is simply an example, and yours is going to look very different from mine, most likely. Just like our fingerprints and our signatures, there is no right or wrong. Everyone has their own unique way of expressing themselves through line. And it can be a very beautiful way of feeling a sense of groundedness and control, even though that is a word that can be very loaded. oftentimes we are seeking more control, and when our bodies are not complying to what it is that we want, whether that's our health, whether that's the way it looks, etc., we can feel powerless, or we can feel that we've lost control in some way. And so psychologically, by taking the time out to draw and just giving ourselves the freedom to allow our hands to make whatever marks we want to make, and knowing that there is no right or wrong in this, gives us that sense of freedom and control that our mind is often looking for. And feel free to change colors and just allow yourself to really explore and discover whatever feels good in the moment. Even if it may look strange to you or doesn't make sense in the moment, just allow yourself to go with it. Just see what your hands want to create with the lines and the colors, and know that there literally is no wrong way of doing this. And it doesn't matter what it looks like. This is all about the process. It's all about how it feels as you're creating it. It's about giving yourself permission to freely express yourself, not worrying about the outcome, which is something that plagues us quite often. So you can fill in the lines, you can leave them blank. Again, this is all up to you. So you can create however you feel drawn to moving these utensils, these drawing utensils across the paper. Now I'm going to again give you the opportunity, if you would so choose, to pause the video so that you can continue with this exercise, with this process, if you so choose to. And then we will move on to the next process art activity. But as you can see, this is just the beginning of a process art drawing here. And yours can be as drawn out or as little drawn out as you want or need. So take the time you need if you'd like to continue, and I will see you in the next activity. Our next process art activity will be focusing on the mind. In the mind, we create a lot of thought forms. I like to think of it as those bubbles in cartoons or comics, where you see the bubbles coming up from the character's head, and you'll see words that they're thinking. So if you think of thought forms as those bubbles, which is kind of a silly way of thinking of it, but I think seeing it as a silly character in a comic book can help take away some of the power that some of these thoughts can have over us, because oftentimes these thoughts are very critical, or can be, and we tend to get caught up in our thoughts. And these thoughts can also create a lot of tension in our emotional landscape. So when we think about our mind and we think about the thoughts we would like to think, what are those thoughts? What are the thoughts that we would prefer to be thinking? So it's pretty easy at times to go into a more negative thought form, because our ego, which is all based on survival and keeping us alive, is constantly scanning for areas that are danger. And so our brain is actually hardwired to look at things negatively because it's meant to help us survive. So it makes sense, but it can often get us into some trouble because it can create more worry and tension than need be. So that's why meditation is so helpful, because we're able to still the mind, just like water on a lake. When there's no storms and it's a very still, clear day, the water becomes very, very still, and it becomes like glass, and we're able to see the trees and everything mirrored so perfectly on that still water. And so if you think about your mind as something that can be stilled through meditation, it's a good example to show you that stillness creates clarity. And so when we think of our minds and we think of the thoughts that we think, oftentimes these thoughts can be very tumultuous and create storms in our mind. So I would like for all of you to think about, if you were to have the thoughts that you would prefer, what are those thoughts? And then just start to draw how that makes you feel. So just allow yourself to think about the way that those thoughts make you feel, and then just go into the paper with some crayons. Now, an alternative route to this is, if you are feeling extremely stressed while you are watching this video and you've got a lot of thought forms going on that are creating some chaos, you can also choose to release those thoughts, which is sort of what we were doing. Well, it was what we were doing in the degunking exercise. But if you're still feeling that you're not completely calm, you can alternately use this time to do a similar exercise and draw those thought forms you would prefer to release out into the paper as well. So again, there's no right or wrong way of doing this. It's all about where you're at currently and what experience you're seeking at this time. So I'm just going to focus on what it is that I would prefer to feel. And my drawings oftentimes are very abstract. Yours might be more literal. You can also choose to write words. You can layer colors. There's lots of different ways that you may be finding yourself expressing in each activity. But the important thing is to surrender to whatever you feel drawn to do. So that is the most important part of all of these activities, is to really just go with what feels right in the moment, and to not question if it's right or wrong, but just go with it and just allow yourself that freedom to explore what it is you're feeling drawn to explore artistically and expressively. So you just allow your hands to take the color and the line once again wherever it wants to go. And as you're drawing, you just focus on your breath and any sensations that may come up. And instead of labeling whatever may come up as bad or good, just notice what is coming up. Just observe. And just breathe. And allow yourself full reign of color and shape. So once again, I'll invite you to pause the video if you so choose to continue with this particular drawing exercise. And we will then move on to the next one, which will be the spirit or the soul. For this process art activity, we will be focusing on the spirit or the soul. Now, I like to think of the spirit or the soul as our breath that enters and leaves our body. And we don't even need to think about breathing. We just breathe constantly. It's always available to us. Now, we may need to think how to breathe a little bit deeper, but breathing is something that is just completely automatic. We breathe to live. And so when I think of the breath and I think about taking a deep breath and how amazing that feels, I think that that's our spirit and it's filling our bodies with life. I also think of spirit as our emotional landscape and that which inspires us and makes us feel more alive. So when you think about what is it that makes your spirit sing, what is it that makes your spirit feel so alive and emotionally content, this is what I would like for you to focus on for this particular process art activity. So again, it can be literal, it can be abstract, however you end up exploring this through drawing is completely up to you, and there is, again, no right or wrong way of doing this. This is all about exploring the shapes and the colors as you allow yourself to be curious and just go with what feels good. Because the next part of this activity, which is the last part, which is journaling, we will be exploring the symbology of these. So it's not about if it looks right or if it's in the right composition. This isn't about technique. This is all about just in the moment, whatever feels right, and it may make no sense. You may be drawing shapes or images that may not seem to equate to the theme that we're working with, and that's okay, because later on we'll explore what that might mean for us. But right now it's all about just giving yourself that freedom and the feeling, tapping into the feeling of contentment for your emotional landscape. What is it that makes your spirit sing? And again, it could be words. For me, it's art, of course. So maybe I'll write that word down, but again, it's not necessary to write it down, but maybe that's how you feel drawn to expressing this theme. So you can write down the words that come into your mind as you think about that or as you're feeling that out. You can even turn the words into an image themselves. So you can just get creative with it, and just like a child, when a child is drawing, they just kind of go for it. They just allow themselves to have fun with it, and they don't look at it and say, oh, well, it should be looking this way. That's something that's conditioned into us later on in life as we grow up. And oftentimes we'll stop making art because we think that art is supposed to look a certain way and that it's not worth doing if it doesn't look a certain way. And that's why I find art to be so healing, because we are all inherently artists. We are always creating in one way or another. It doesn't it doesn't have to be the traditional literal sense of visual art. There's cooking, there's music, there's dance, there's even just the way we talk and the way we move our body is creative, and it's fundamentally us. It's who we are, uniquely who we are. There's no one else out there like us. And so we are always creating art in some way. We are all creators in some way. We create our lives. And so when we allow ourselves the freedom to draw again, just like when we were children, it can feel very nostalgic, and it can also feel very safe and freeing, especially when you're not telling yourself it has to look a certain way. Judgment of ourselves is one of the most challenging psychological things we can do for to ourselves, and all of us often do it all the time, constantly judging how we go about our lives. And when we give ourselves the space and time to not judge ourselves, and we give ourselves the permission to really just let ourselves be, a lot of healing can occur in those spaces. So just let yourself draw, and if there's anything that comes up for you while you're drawing, maybe you're not liking the way your drawing's looking, for example, which can of course happen regardless of giving yourself permission to not judge yourself. Our minds like to judge, and automatically at times can automatically just go into autopilot on default and just immediately start going into judgment mode. And so what I'll invite you all to do is, if that happens, to question what is it about the art or whatever it is in life when you bump up against something where you're judging. What is it that's making you judge that as bad or wrong? Because oftentimes there's a lot of information in that, and it can stem from somewhere far back, typically. And it gives us the opportunity to really question why it is we're getting triggered by something. Because I think of triggers as teachers, and our triggers can teach us what it is that needs to be looked at and more awareness put on that area. And once more awareness is put into that area, then we're able to understand ourselves with greater clarity and have a stronger self-awareness. So I am going to once again allow you to pause the video if need be. Otherwise, we will be moving on to the final activity of today's process art workshop. So now the final step to this process art activity is to lay out all 3 images that you've created and give yourself a moment to look at them and see if there's a narrative amongst the 3 together. You can either look at them as a whole piece, or you can look at them individually. But what I'm going to have you do next is take your journal or your notebook and ask your art if it could speak. What would it say to you? I like to think of it as birthing parts of our subconscious, and we're then able to see what type of wisdom can be imparted from the images that have been created. So one of the ways you can do this is either ask each piece what it would say to you if it were to talk, and then write down whatever comes to mind, uncensored, just free flow writing. Or another way you can do this is you can ask each piece, if you were to have a title, what would your title be? And then you can write down the title at the bottom of each picture, and then see if there's a narrative that flows between the three. And if there isn't, that's fine, but it just gives you a new way of seeing things and understanding parts of yourself in a way that gives you more clarity and overall self-awareness. So I hope you found this activity helpful. Once again, if you would like to learn more about what I do, my name is Jen Downing, and you can find all of my information on the Light of Loving Kindness website, which is www.lightoflovingkindness.org. Thank you so much.
So, we hope you've enjoyed this video today. Remember, you are love. You are light. You are kindness. And you are the light of loving kindness.